Rogers TV. Are you a content creator looking to expand your audience and make your voice heard in your community? Rogers TV wants to provide you with a platform to share your hobbies, interests, and stories for free. Visit us to find out more.
Welcome to Easy Eats. My name is Chef Yves Dechaine, and today we're in the Greener Villages kitchen with Dr. Jennifer Russell, newly appointed Executive Director of the Institute of Population Health. Welcome. We're so happy to have you on, so happy to talk to you in a different role. So let's talk about your new role, and I hear that it's a new program, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's been almost a year since I started at the university, and getting an institute off the ground from scratch, because it did not exist before, takes some doing. So there's hoops you have to jump through on the university side, and so I'm almost a year in, and I have a very small team, and I have a scientific director who is in charge of the research side of the institute, and then I'm also interested in education and awareness, and I'm interested in knowledge translation. I'm really interested in any and all research that has to do with prevention, anything upstream, and then also looking at policies and legislation at the population level of anything that can help with our health.
Okay, so encompassing what is population health? Like, what you just mentioned a couple of the studies, but simplified, what is it?
So I trained as a family physician way back when, and as a family physician, you're treating people one-on-one. So whatever their problems are, you're finding solutions, you're diagnosing them, doing tests, and maybe prescribing, whether it's medication or physiotherapy or what have you. So it's all one-on-one treatment, which is very, very important. But if you're looking at the population as a whole and you're looking upstream, what are the things that we can do to be healthy before we need to see a doctor, whether it's vaccinations, whether it's screening. They have great screening programs for breast cancer and prostate cancer and colon cancer. But even higher upstream, what can we look at? Social determinants of health, education, housing. What legislation and policies can we look at that make people healthier, whether it's the built environment. I just got back from Copenhagen, and they have many laws and policies around healthy transportation and biking and walking. So from that perspective, and also food, some countries have very specific bans on advertising for unhealthy foods. So you can look at it at the population level, and you can also look at it at the individual level, and all of them are really important.
Well, that's fantastic. So I guess us at the Greener Village, we kind of play a little role in that, don't we? When you were talking about homelessness and making sure that people have good and equitable food to have, and with our new center coming up, it's even more important to put focus on that, because there is, like you said, legislature on trying to make sure that stuff doesn't get into the ground, but into people's bellies, into people's homes and things like that.
Exactly, and I did actually attend two really great events around food insecurity that Shauna Miller with the Regional Public Health Office here put on, and my goodness, it was very inspiring. And in fact, one of the people who gave their testimonies was somebody who had benefited from a place like Greener Village in terms of their Christmas program, and so it was really really inspiring, and it was a great educational experience as well to find out about food insecurity in the province and what that means for people in terms of not having enough food to eat, but maybe not also having enough nutritious food to eat.
Well, absolutely. And Shauna, I met her because we did a great project together where middle school children made posters. And then the winning poster got to come down, and we made soup with our society. We have a stone soup society that we ran for a little bit. So the kids came down and they got to see what the Greener Village did. And then we made some corn chowder that they were able to enjoy. And then they made enough for us to hand out. So they got to see a ground floor or grassroots of what food security is and how a little impact can make a big difference.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
it was
amazing,
a lot of fun.
Yves. Yeah.
So how did you become a doctor? What inspired you to follow medicine?
Well, I grew up in a household with a type 1 diabetic. So my brother was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes the year that I was born, actually. My mother actually gave birth to me and brought me home, and then she went back to the hospital to look after my brother, who had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. He actually passed away 20 years ago from type 1 diabetes, But in the middle of that journey, he also unfortunately was in a car accident when he was 17 and became a quadriplegic. He did go on to get a university degree and live very independently, but all of the struggles that he had and the challenges definitely were part of the motivation for me becoming a doctor.
Oh, that's wonderful. An inspiring story, and I mean, that's fantastic. So today, I thought we would make a Buddha bowl. So we're talking about mindfulness and healthy eating and trying to incorporate well-being. And again, like you said, population health starts at home, and it looks at and you're in charge of the big pictures. But us as individuals, we can start doing it at home. So I was thinking that this is a great way to start with meal prep. Right? So we start with doing things that you can do ahead of time, which I've done here, and then we kind of pull into that. So what kind of diet or what kind of things did you suggest that we work on?
Well, all the reading that I've done over the years and even recently in the last year has been around things like blue zones diet and the mind diet. So the blue zones are the places in the world where people live till they're 100.
Okay.
What are they eating? And things like the MIND diet, which some people may have heard of, the DASH diet, which is the diet that helps reduce your risks of heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes. But if you combine it with the Mediterranean diet, that's called the MIND diet, and that also decreases your risk of dementia. So all the ingredients you see here actually are on either the MIND diet or the Blue Zones diet, and in particular, it highlights eating a lot of grains, a lot of leafy greens and beans. And so I see all three of these things here, and it's wonderful. So and I'm assuming that's olive oil.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So these are things that on the MIND diet or on the Blue Zones diet are really a big focus.
Well, that's it, and I wanted to bring this in today to show that with the climate of things being more expensive and proteins like meat and things that are important for our body, but we can find it in different things that are a little bit more economical. So we're talking about our grains, we're talking about beans and dry legumes, or even from the can are just as good. So I'm excited to share this recipe with you and then get some pointers, and maybe we can talk about what I chose because I like the way it tastes is good for your body.
It's interesting how some things that are really, really healthy for us are also healthy for the planet. So I like that win-win.
Oh, that's interesting. That's awesome. We'll be back to build this Buddha bowl after these short messages.
They've reached the summit! Back-to-back Stanley Cup victories.
Greatness.
And a new legacy begins!
Absolutely amazing.
It has happened in Vegas.
Is not a destination.
And lightning has struck twice.
It is a continuous journey that never ends.
These are the moments you dream of. Stanley Cup champions.
I never thought I'd know that feeling. To be in love. Because for us, it was a crime. Someone had to respond to the tabloids. So I wrote letters, challenging every misconception about homosexuality. 9 homes, 7 dogs, 47 years together, and still not spouses under the law. So we took our fight to the Supreme Court.
Jim Egan and Jack Nesbitt await a verdict on their fight for spousal rights.
Hello. We lost our case, but we made a difference.
As a result of Jim Egan's case, the Supreme Court ruled that sexual orientation is protected under the Charter of Rights, a landmark victory for the LGBTQ2 community.
Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, we're in the Greener Villages kitchen with Dr. Jennifer Russell, and we're about to make a Buddha bowl. So, a Buddha bowl, can you tell us, or we were talking about this before the break, what a Buddha bowl means?
Well, the first time I ever heard of a Buddha bowl, I was at a yoga retreat at a place called Kripalu, and all of the food they were serving was super healthy, but they actually had like a place where they had all the ingredients to make Buddha bowls, so you could kind of make your own. So that whole layering approach that you were talking about.
Well, that's it, and we touched on mindfulness, and I guess that was kind of the play of the Buddha. So you were talking about the mindfulness diet or mindfulness while we're eating, so let's talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I took a mindfulness course 2 years ago, and based on John Kabat-Zinn's philosophies and research. And one of the things we had to do during that 6-week course, we had to actually eat a grape. But it took something like 5 minutes to eat this grape because we had to really be in the moment and observe, like, what does it taste like? What's the texture? What are we smelling? What are we feeling? What are we tasting? And also in the middle of that, giving thanks to the people that picked those grapes and acknowledging the work and effort to transport those grapes, and then the people that were in the grocery store. So a whole shift in your thinking about what you're putting in your mouth.
So let's get into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to grill some vegetables. So it's a Mexican Buddha bowl. So we're going to play on some fajitas, kind of taco flavors. So I've done this ahead of time, so if you can help me out, all we're going to do is we're going to spread this out onto the sheet pan, and then you're going to season it with a little bit of paprika while I cut this other pepper just to add to it. And all we're going to do now is we're going to bring out our flavors and things like that. So a lot of people are talking about charring things for flavor and things like that, but honestly, Doctor, how unhealthy is it to char things?
I don't think it's as healthy. But you know, everything in moderation.
Well, exactly. Here we go.
So you want me to spread this?
Spread that a little bit here. I'll add this right there. And then we're just going to add a little bit of oil. And not a whole lot, just a kind of, we'll let the juices from the vegetables and the onions kind of use that. So a little bit of oil. I know that olive oil is good.
It is the healthiest oil, I think. But again, you can Google that.
Yeah. Perfect. So we've got there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that into the oven. And there we go, right here. So I've got that at about 400 Fahrenheit, and I'm going to pop my convection fan on, and then we're going to get some nice color on that, and we're going to get some nice crispiness to it, and that'll be the part of the Buddha bowl layering. And then the next step is getting our quinoa together. So I'm using quinoa today because I think it's a great ancient grain and that I've kind of taken a liking to, but you don't always have to use quinoa. You can use rice, you can use a farro, you could use barley, you can use French fries if you wanted to, right? So, but quinoa, tell me a little bit about quinoa. When you saw it, you said, this is a great choice.
Yes, it's great because it's a whole grain. And so when you talk about the Blue Zones diets or you talk about the Mind diet, they really focus on whole grains. So I think our society eats a lot of white bread and white rice, but really the healthiest choice for a grain is a whole grain, whether it's whole wheat bread or unless you're gluten-free,
yeah,
obviously. But anything that's whole grain in its entirety, the grain in its entirety. And I actually did look up the protein content of the different grains, so whether it's farro or quinoa, and those whole grains have quite a bit of protein in them. I remember talking to somebody before about whether or not to become a vegetarian and what's good about that or not, and they were like, well, where is the protein coming from? It's incredible how much protein are in things like whole grains.
And it's incredible that it starts out like that, and through the processing that we do, and to make everything white and bland, you're taking away all the nutritional value. Like rice, the husk on top of it is better than the rice itself, or the peeling on the potato. I remember when my mom used to say, eat the peelings. And I would never eat potatoes if they had peelings on them when I was younger, and that's where all the vitamins are. That's where all the nutrition you find. All right, moving forward, so we're going to season this with a little bit of lime juice, just like this. You could use lemon juice, but I just like lime. I think it's a nicer, deeper flavor.
I love lime.
So there we go. So we'll just kind of, and I pre-cooked this, so it's super easy to get and put into your fridge. And again, you can choose. And what we do is we do have our white rice because some of my little ones won't eat this quite yet. So
I also like some of the pre-cooked things. I'm a shortcut queen. I like things that are already prepped.
Yes.
So for those people who are totally stressed with time and commitments, there are some pre-cooked versions of this that you can actually buy, whether it's quinoa or a mixture of brown rice or a mixture of quinoa and lentils. So there's the blue menu things from Superstore.
Okay, that as well. And then the deli also at those grocery stores have pre-made things as well, so that you can come and pick it up.
Obviously, cooking from scratch is the best thing to do, but when we're really pressed for time, sometimes it is trying to find those healthy convenience things that can help us.
Absolutely. So we're going to season this with a little salt and pepper. So we said we have a little bit of lime juice, a little salt, a little pepper, and then I'm going to hit it up with a little bit of cilantro just to brighten it up a little bit, just like this. And then I found this this seasoning that friends of mine has showed me. It's called tahine, which is just it's basically a seasoning salt, a Mexican seasoning salt that just brightens it up. There's like a lime juice, a little bit of paprika in it. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I've fallen in love with it. So there we go. And then just a dash of olive oil again. I've got maybe 3 tablespoons of olive oil in this cup, and I'm going to use that throughout the whole recipe, right like this. So there we go, that's nice and seasoned, and we're just going to set this off to the side right there. And then the next step to this is just putting our beans and things in there. So you can use chicken, you can use pork, you can use beef if you want, but we're kind of leaning towards finding our protein, like we said, in our vegetables. So we're using black beans, and they're canned black beans. So is there a difference between a dried legume and then the canned legume, nutrition-wise?
Not nutrition-wise in the sense that, I mean, some canned products that will tell you if there's added sodium in it. So the ones that have the less salt in it, obviously the better. But certainly the process is easier when you just have a can to open. But if you have the time to soak them, or if you have a Instapot or pressure cooker, they cook up really quickly.
But yeah, no, I like the convenience of canned beans, and you're right. You look at the sodium content. I look at the ones like even with fruit, packed in water, natural juices, no added salt, things like that is what you kind of should look for. All right.
I love that you have so many different colors in the foods, because some people say, you know, you got to eat the rainbow.
Well, that's it, and let's talk a little bit about that. And I guess our Canada Food Guide, which is kind of evolving and changing, it's not the Canada Food Guide that I knew when I was growing up, where you had to have X amount of portions in the pyramid. It's more of a kind of a broader based, kind of based on the Brazilian model, wasn't it?
That I'm not sure, but I see on your fridge over there you have a plate that shows what your proportions should be in terms of what you're eating, vegetables versus protein versus starches. So that's really important as well, that if you're eating more vegetables than anything else, that's really healthy. The more fruits and vegetables we can get in our diet every day, the better.
And the brighter, darker colors as well, right?
All different colors of the rainbow, because they all have different nutrients, and all of them are important.
Well, absolutely. So we've got our pan, we've heated up with the rest of the oil. Now I'm just going to add our garlic. We're just going to mix that until it's nice and fragrant. And it doesn't take long. You can see it sizzle, and as soon as you start to smell it. So it's important not to leave it in too long or burn it, because once you burn your garlic, it becomes bitter and arid, and it's hard to get that flavor out. So.
And I'm noticing your pan. This is a cast iron pan.
It is a cast iron pan.
There are some people who really like cooking with this for the technique itself, but some people like cooking with cast iron because you actually, some of the iron actually leaches into the food, so it increases the iron content of what we're eating.
There we go. So we've got these sauteing now, and all we want to do is basically when you're cooking it is smell works a lot.
It smells delicious.
Visually, so as soon as that thing starts smelling a certain way, so now you smell the garlic, and now I can kind of smell the beans, and the beans are kind of, they're sticking, but then they're pulling away from the cast iron. There we go. And then I'm just going to add some corn.
Now, is that frozen corn or canned?
It's canned corn. So I like using canned corn because it's canned at its peak. So is frozen corn as well, but I kind of like the texture, and I think it's a little cheaper, a little more inexpensive, and it holds longer. And especially with people who have limited space in their fridges and things like that, having canned corn in your cupboard is a must.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of things when they get freezer burned.
No, and then that's it. Is if you don't, and I find that too. If I don't use the whole bag of corn, and then I forget about it in the back of my freezer, so. There we go, and then we'll saute that a little bit. We don't want to cook that too much. I like to keep my corn as raw as possible because I like that pop that the corn gives me and the freshness that it gives. But we're going to season it here with a little bit of cumin. And we'll talk about spices and things like that, how they're helpful and beneficial as well. So what would you recommend if I guess different spices for different diets, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I think if you, for people that grew up in a meat and potatoes and gravy household like I did, there wasn't a lot of spice.
No.
But it wasn't until I became an adult and started trying Japanese food and Greek food and Indian food and Thai and Vietnamese that you discover all these great flavors.
And does that have to do with you said the blue zone or the blue diet? Do the spices kind of have anything to do with that?
Well, I think if you're talking about anything that has certain properties, I think we talk about turmeric having an anti-inflammatory effect. But I think just that having that those opportunities for having different flavors for that variety.
Absolutely. Okay. There we go. So we'll be back after this short break to finish building this Buddha bowl and talk more about health with Dr. Jennifer Russell.
Every year, dozens of Canadians are killed or seriously injured because they take risks around railway tracks. Talk to your loved ones about rail safety. Visit stoptracktragedies.ca.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm so happy to have these pastel coins. I wear them every day so I can do all the things I love to do. I like to hike, skate, and do gymnastics. Because of your donations, Lamps is able to give me these devices. When you donate, you help kids like me. Thank you.
Are you a content creator looking to expand your audience and make your voice heard in your community? Rogers TV wants to provide you with a platform to share your hobbies, interests, and stories for free. Visit us to find out more.
Welcome back to Easy Eats. Again, we're in the Greener Villages Learning Kitchen with Dr. Jennifer Russell, Executive Director of the Institute of Population Health. So we're going to be putting the Buddha bowl together.
This is almost like a deconstructed fajita.
You're absolutely right. I mean, kids like tacos, and kids like to eat tacos, but how are we going to get them away from eating that, like you were saying, that white bread, the processed, the corn tortillas are a lot better, but I know that a lot of people aren't quite sold on those yet, so they're buying the white wraps. So it is a great way to kind of make your tacos healthier, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to start off, and I'm just going to hand things to you, and basically it's really easy. All you do is you layer with as much or as little as you want to put in. So we're going to start off with a nice romaine lettuce, or any kind of green, really. We just had romaine because here at the Greener Village, I use what I have in my fridge, and I guess everyone should. If you're going to go buy a special, then what would you recommend in the bottom of the Buddha bowl?
Oh, for greens, you mean?
For greens, yeah.
Well, you know, when I was talking about the Mind diet and the Blue Zones diet, grains and greens really feature the most prominently in those diets. So any of the greens, leafy greens in particular, so kale, spinach, any kind of dark lettuce, but anything green really. But that's what the leafy greens would be the highest, I guess, recommended green to put in there. But any green will do.
Perfect. So we'll layer that in the bottom. What we want to do is we kind of want to layer tastes and crunches, right? So you can probably put, as much or as little as you want. And we're going to build this enough to share between you and I.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait.
Perfect. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our bread substitute or our grain. So today we have our quinoa, and then you can flavor it any way you want.
You know what's really cool about grains is, again, until I started reading this stuff about grains and whole grains, I didn't really think about how we normally eat grains, you know, whether it's oatmeal or porridge or granola. I went to a place once where they served quinoa for breakfast. Well, yeah. I would never have thought of eating quinoa for breakfast, but in this place, they served it with milk that had been soaked in chai tea, and they served it with raisins and nuts. And like, who would have ever thought to eat quinoa for breakfast like that?
Well, no, quinoa, absolutely. I've been kind of playing with the savory oatmeal lately, where I would make my oatmeal and I put in mushrooms and bacon and onions.
Oh, so I've done it with sweet potatoes.
Well, exactly, that kind of play.
And apple spices then, so yeah.
Exactly, so.
Or pumpkin spice.
Right, so again, breakfasts don't have to be our traditional, and I guess now here in North America with new diets, I guess everything's become universal. So again, we're seeing more of this kind of universal and kind of a fusion trend, a Buddha bowl, but a Mexican Buddha bowl. So, yes. But we're taking the best of all the worlds, and we're kind of putting them together. So the next thing we want to do is we want to put in our vegetables. So you can, either with your fingers or with that, we can scoop in some of our beans, and then we'll put in our peppers and our onions. And while you're doing that, what I'm going to do is, because we want to put in some healthy fats and some creams, so what I would do, or what we would gravitate at home, is because we love sour cream at home, I'd have a dollop of sour cream on top of that.
Now you can also use fat-free yogurt.
You could, the Greek yogurt, but what I like to do, and it gives the same kind of creaminess, what I like to use, and I'm trying to learn to like more, I'm not a big fan, but is avocado. So.
I love avocado. It's one of those healthy fats. So when I talk about grains, greens, berries or fruit, grains, greens, berries, beans, nuts, olive oil, and avocado kind of fall into that category with the Mediterranean diet or the Mind diet or the Blue Zones diet. I'm trying to break up the colors here. So I've got the orange and red over here, and then when we get the tomatoes, I'm going to put them over here.
Well, that's perfect. So yeah, and that's it, is that we always top it off with something nice and fresh. So I like to top mine off with a pico or a salsa. So a pico is simply just onions, tomatoes, and a little bit of lemon juice and some cilantro. So there we go. Pass it off to you. And then we'll just slice these.
I love making homemade salsa. It's so easy.
It is, and I mean, they're easy enough to grow, or...
Well, I've dreamt about having one of those tomato plants on my back deck that have the little grape tomatoes, or not grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes on them.
Well, no, absolutely, and I mean, yeah, and they're great for backyard gardening and container gardening. So there we go. We have our. All we're going to do is just kind of put.
Wow.
Little
That's
avocado
beautiful.
on top. And then I always season with just a sprinkle of tahini, which really pops out the flavor, and I guess it makes a nice little garnish there.
Beautiful.
I think all we have left to do is eat, but before we do that, thank you so much for coming in and talking about a little bit about population health, about how to kind of eat healthy, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Yves.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
I was born and raised in Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I'm from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
You're watching Rogers TV.
In para hockey, the ice tilts in favor of men. But that will never stop us.
United by passion, battling for equity. We are the National Women's Para Hockey Team of Canada.
We're here.
We're hungry.
We're ready.
Ready to inspire.
Ready to leave our legacy.
Ready to be supported